we got the Big East tournament we're going to talk about now. The Big East tournament. This is one I'm always excited for. It's just the history, the tradition. It's going to be, there's so many great matchups and storylines going into this one. First round, you got Butler, Providence, DePaul, Georgetown, Seton Hall, Villanova. Not super exciting, to be honest, but then you look at the quarterfinals. We're looking at a potential St. John's Butler or St. John's Providence, obviously, Marquette Xavier, then Creighton Georgetown, and Villanova UConn. That is an elite set of quarterfinal games on that Thursday. So very, very excited about that one. Ben, I'm going to pull up the FanDuel odds here in a second. Just looking at the bracket right now, what pokes your eye out, and who are you looking for to win this thing?
I think what sticks out to me is I do think the top 5 that have a day off, I think those 5 are definitely distanced from the rest. I think as you're pulling up the odds, the thing that sticks out to me is I think a Marquette Xavier winner beating St. John's is potentially a play where I think everyone would be super, super bummed by it. I think I like Marquette beating Xavier. I think it's a great game, though, because the Xavier team's very live right now. I think Marquette gets revenge against St. John's. I think it's hard to beat that team again, especially with how things broke yesterday. And I'm going to say that we see Marquette versus UConn in the title.
I think we just are thinking the complete opposite about this tournament.
I'm very much going Galaxy Brain, and I'm going Galaxy Brain with this tournament. I am. You just like St. John's versus Creighton or something?
No, I like Xavier a lot. I've been a Xavier guy all season. And
you have been.
Xavier is playing for their lives right now. Xavier beats Marquette, stone cold lock for March Madness. They're in the tournament. They might even avoid Dayton at that point. I like Xavier. They're my dark horse to win this thing at 10-1. I would like to say Villanova because I like their path. I'll move it back over to the bracket here in a second. But I would like to say Villanova, but that extra day does matter to me. And I know you can say, well, NC State, they won it. NC State, they did this. NC State's the exception. That doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen. Every other conference tournament, it doesn't happen. NC State did it last year. It can happen. And I know it's against the Seton Hall team, but we've seen Seton Hall. They can be frisky against teams, especially like UConn. To be honest, we need to create some kind of name for this or some kind of formula where we have our Kentucky, Kansas, and I'm going to say UConn. If those 3 teams make a deep run in their conference tournaments, that is best case scenario for us because they get propped up and everyone that's tuning in right now is going to be like, they're hot, they're rolling right now. Those are teams to look at. Bill Self, Kentucky, and then you got Dan Hurley, back-to-back champs. Yeah, I'm watching those teams, and I cannot wait to fade them come March Madness time. Looking at the bracket right now, I think Rick Pitino really wants to win this thing. Like, I think he really, really wants to win this thing.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Now, I don't think he necessarily cared about ever winning the ACC tournament when he was the coach of Louisville or whatever. But winning the Big East tournament with St. John's in the Garden, I think matters a lot to him. And I think it might actually hurt them going into March Madness play if they ended up doing that. I'm not even going to bother picking the Wednesday games. I think the semifinals is going to be St. John's versus Xavier. I think it's going to be Creighton versus Villanova in the semifinals. I think Nova beats UConn, to be honest. And because Nova's playing for their lives right now, but I think they crash out. This is a gross pick. Yeah, no, let's go chalk. I'm going chalk. Let's go St. John's Creighton in the final. Let's go St. John's Creighton in the final, and I'm picking St. John's to win the Big East tournament. Let's go chalk. No, don't overthink it. I like Xavier as my 10-1 dark horse. I'm gonna bet them. I'm not gonna bet St. John's. Give me Xavier as the dark horse, but I just can't pick against this Rick Pitino team, dude. If Rick Pitino wins the Big East tournament, that's one of the biggest FUs. And look, it's cute with the St. John's team to me a little bit. But eventually, you're going to have to be able to score the ball. I know Rick Pitino is the only coach ever for a Final Four team to shoot under 30% and still make the Final Four. I just don't think that's the case this year in a loaded group of teams in college basketball this year.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that's a concern. I do think they want this one, but I'm not sure that necessarily means they get it. And I think they kind of go into the NCAA tournament with a little bit of a fire. I like Marquette to win this tournament.
Oh.
And I think it's because they're a team that's underachieved this year, but has the horses of, they've got like the core outside of Kolek and Iguodaro of like their last 3 years worth of teams. The outside shooting is a slight bit of concern for them. I think Marquette beats UConn in the title in a weird Big East tournament. I like Marquette here. I don't know why. It's just sort of a gut check. You said don't overthink it, and I ignored you and decided to fully overthink this and go Marquette.
Yeah, my problem with Marquette is they're a team I've been looking at to fade in March Madness as well, to be honest.
You're not wrong.
Ben, when was the last time they beat a tournament team? Have you looked at their schedule?
Yeah, it's been a while. No, they've been losing over and over and over again. I just trust that with this coach and with this talent, they're able to turn a corner here. I might be wishing something where it's just too late. It's not going to happen, but
they haven't beat a tournament team since January 3rd.
Yeah, that's not great.
You go through it right now. They beat Creighton at home January 3rd. Okay, let's just run. I'm going to read some schedules real quick. I'll steamroll through this. Home Georgetown win. At DePaul win. Both of those not tournament teams. The Xavier, potential tournament team, lost to Xavier. Then 3 teams that are probably not tournament teams. Seton Hall, definitely not. Nova, maybe. Butler, no. They beat all of them. They lost their next 3 to UConn, at St. John's, at Creighton. And then they win their next 2 against 2 non-tournament teams, DePaul, Seton Hall. Then they lose by 15 at Villanova. Then they win their next 2 against non-tournament teams in Providence and in Georgetown. And then they've lost their last 2 to close of the season against UConn and St. John's. I don't know how I can trust this Marquette team.
No, I mean, that's valid. I don't trust them. I don't trust them, but there's just a little bit of a vibes thing for me where I'm like, okay. I think especially after this last game.
You just want Shaka Smart to go off in this tournament and then increase his buyout to potentially go to University of Virginia.
Except the problem is, yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it's a subconscious thing like that.
I like watching for the teams that are extremely desperate in March Madness, and Marquette doesn't strike me as a team that's extremely desperate. And like Nova, they are so desperate. UConn, look, it's Dan Hurley, but they're not playing for really anything. They're stuck in the 8-9 game at this point. And then you look at a team like Xavier, they're desperate. St. John's, like I mentioned before, I think they're desperate to win it for Rick Pitino and win it in the Garden at, a home environment. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait for this one, but I'm going chalk. Give me St. John's. Xavier's my dark horse.